Some moments hit harder than the biggest fights because they come in silence. Jack and Tim were never the kind of father and son who said much. No long speeches, no easy apologies, and definitely no warm hugs waiting at the end of a bad day. Their relationship was built on stubbornness, pride, and years of words left unsaid. Most of the time, when they stood in the same room, it felt like two storms refusing to move. But every once in a while, something changed. For just a moment, the walls came down. No arguing, no sarcasm, no old wounds being reopened. Just honesty. Just understanding. And in Heartland, one of the rarest and most powerful moments came when Jack and Tim shared something they almost never allowed themselves to show. Tenderness. It wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic, but it said more than years of fighting ever could. Because sometimes, the strongest love is the one that struggles the most to speak. Tim Fleming had always been the kind of man who filled every room the second he walked into it. Loud, confident, stubborn, and impossible to ignore. Tim had a way of making everything about him, whether he meant to or not. He carried himself like a man who had survived too much to ever back down. Rodeo had shaped him that way. Life had made it worse. He pushed hard, talked fast, and covered every weakness with pride. To most people, Tim looked fearless. But Jack knew better. Jack had watched him for years, watched the mistakes, the bad decisions, the broken promises, and all the damage Tim left behind while trying to outrun himself. Jack wasn't impressed by big talk or excuses. He judged a man by what he did when things got hard. And for a long time, Tim had failed that test in Jack's eyes. That was the heart of their tension. It wasn't just personality. It was disappointment. Jack had stepped in when Tim disappeared. He'd been there for Lou and Amy when their father wasn't. He picked up the pieces and protected the family while Tim chased rodeos and second chances. That kind of history doesn't disappear. It sits at the dinner table. It stands in the barn. It follows every conversation. Even when years passed, it was still there between them.
What made that moment even more powerful was everything that came before it. Jack and Tim were not simply two stubborn men clashing over ranch work or family decisions. Their history ran much deeper than that. It was built on years of disappointment, broken trust, and the kind of pain that settles so deep it becomes part of everyday life. Tim had not just made mistakes, he had left. He had walked away when his family needed him most, chasing rodeo dreams and a life that always seemed just out of reach. And when someone leaves like that, they do not just create absence, they create silence, questions, resentment, children who grow up learning not to expect too much. Jack had stepped into that silence. He became the steady hand, the one who stayed, the one who made sure Amy and Lou had someone to lean on when their father was somewhere else, trying to outrun himself. That kind of sacrifice changes a man. Jack never talked much about it, but responsibility shaped him as surely as rodeo shaped him. He believed love was proven through work, through waking up early, fixing fences, paying attention, and standing by your family when things got hard. Not through promises, not through charm, through presence. That was why Tim frustrated him so much. Because Tim had all the charm in the world, all the confidence, all the big words. But for a long time, he lacked the one thing Jack valued most: consistency. Every time Tim blew back into Heartland full of plans and energy, Jack saw not hope, but history repeating itself. He had seen too many promises break apart to trust easy change. And yet, Tim kept trying. That mattered more than Jack ever admitted. There was something almost tragic about a man who knows he failed, but still keeps reaching for redemption. Tim was not blind to his past. He knew exactly what people thought of him. He knew Lou's guarded distance. He knew Amy's pain. He knew every sharp look from Jack carried years behind it. That knowledge followed him That peace did not arrive all at once. It came slowly, the way most real healing does, through ordinary days, repeated effort, and the quiet decision not to give up on each other. After that rare moment between Jack and Tim, nothing suddenly became perfect. There was no dramatic transformation, no overnight change where Tim became easy to deal with and Jack turned soft. They were still themselves. Tim was still loud, impulsive, and always one comment away from starting an argument. Jack was still stubborn, sharp-tongued, and never interested in making things easy. But something underneath had shifted. The foundation felt stronger. The fights no longer felt like two men trying to tear each other apart. They felt like family. Frustrating, exhausting, but rooted in something that was no longer in question. That was the strange beauty of their relationship. Love between them never looked gentle from the outside. It looked like criticism, like lectures in the barn, like eye rolls across the dinner table. It looked like Jack telling Tim exactly what he was doing wrong, and Tim pretending not to care while secretly carrying every word. Some people mistake that for dislike, but real family, especially in Heartland, is rarely polished. It is rough around the edges. It survives because people stay, even when staying is difficult. Jack and Tim had spent years testing that truth. Tim began to change in ways that mattered because they were small. He showed up without needing attention for it. He stayed longer. He listened more. He started understanding that being part of a family was not about making grand entrances or dramatic promises. It was about consistency, about being there on regular Tuesdays when nothing special was happening, helping with chores, being present at dinner, answering when someone called. In the end, what made that tender moment between Jack and Tim unforgettable was not the words they said, but everything those words carried. Years of disappointment, years of pride, years of love hidden behind arguments and stubborn silence. Their relationship was never simple, and that was exactly why it mattered so much. Anyone can be kind when things are easy. Anyone can offer warmth when there is no history standing in the way. But Jack and Tim had history. Heavy history. The kind that shapes every conversation before it even begins. And still, somehow, they found their way back to each other. That is what made Heartland feel so real. It never treated family like something clean and effortless. It showed love the way it often exists in real life. Messy, unfinished, and sometimes frustrating enough to make you want to walk away. But the people who matter most are often the ones who challenge us the hardest. Jack and Tim were proof of that. They pushed each other because they saw too much in each other to settle for less. Jack saw the man Tim could be long before Tim believed it himself. And Tim, beneath all his rebellion, saw in Jack the kind of strength he had spent his whole life trying to earn. For all of Tim's noise, his confidence, his endless need to be noticed, there was always something painfully human underneath it. He wanted to belong. He wanted to know that despite every mistake, despite every year lost, there was still a place for him at the table. That he was not just the man who failed, but the man who came back. Redemption is not always about dramatic apologies or grand heroic moments.